Our current attempts at democracy, the specific methods we use to elect our leaders, are mathematically irrational, and that is a well-established mathematical fact. The simplest and most common way to hold an election is to ask voters to pick exactly one favorite candidate. Whoever gets the most votes wins. This is known as first-past-the-post voting, and it's the default system used in the US, the UK, and 42 other countries. But it has a major math problem. It frequently leads to minority rule. If we look at the British Parliament over the last 100 years, a single party held a majority of the seats 21 times. Out of those 21 times, the majority of voters only voted for that party twice. First past the post also creates the spoiler effect. Think back to the 2000 U.S. presidential election between Al Gore and George W. Bush. The race in Florida was decided by fewer than 600 votes. But there was another candidate on the ballot, Ralph Nader, who pulled in almost 100,000 votes in the state. Almost all of those Nader voters preferred Gore over Bush, but because they could only choose one candidate, they had no way of expressing that second preference. By voting for their favorite candidate, they mathematically elected their least preferred option. First past the post functions as a winner-takes-all glitch. Because third-party voters risk siphoning support away from the major candidate they actually prefer, they are often forced to vote strategically rather than honestly, a mathematical pressure that consistently drives the system toward a two-party monopoly. To fix this, we could ask voters to rank their preferences from favorite to least favorite. This is known as ranked choice or instant runoff voting. The mechanics seem perfectly logical. If no candidate has a majority, the lowest performing candidate is eliminated. Their ballots are then distributed to those voters' second preferences, and the process repeats until someone crosses the 50% mark. Let's test it with three hypothetical candidates, A, B, and C. A gets 25% of the vote, B gets 30%, and C gets 45%. Candidate A is eliminated. Their votes transfer to candidate B, and B wins the election. But imagine candidate C makes a terrible speech right before the election and actually loses some voters to candidate A. Now, candidate B is the lowest performer in the first round. The system eliminates B entirely. Their votes transfer, and candidate C wins. Candidate C winning specifically because they lost supporters highlights a breakdown in the system's logic. It creates a situation where doing worse is the only way to win, an outcome that violates the basic relationship between a vote and its result. Back during the French Revolution, a mathematician named Condorcet proposed what felt like a bulletproof alternative: run head-to-head matchups between all candidates based on how everyone ranks them. Whoever beats every other candidate in a one-on-one match wins. We can simulate this method with three friends trying to choose between burgers, pizza, and sushi for dinner. Each friend ranks the three options in a slightly different order. If we run the head-to-head matchups, 2 out of the 3 friends prefer burgers over pizza, and 2 out of the 3 friends prefer pizza over sushi, a clear 2-to-1 margin both times. But if we check the final matchup, 2 out of the 3 friends actually prefer sushi over burgers, by the exact same 2-to-1 margin. The math creates an unresolvable contradiction. This is Condorcet's paradox. Even with perfectly logical head-to-head comparisons, society can get stuck in an endless rock-paper-scissors loop with no clear winner. In 1951, the mathematician Kenneth Arrow published his PhD thesis trying to finally define the undeniable rules of a fair democracy. He outlined 5 obvious conditions for a rational voting system. For example, unanimity. If everyone in the group chooses one option over another, the final outcome must reflect that. And no dictators. No single person's vote should ever override the preferences of everyone else. Arrow proved that satisfying all 5 of these basic fairness conditions in a ranked voting system with 3 or more candidates is impossible. Mathematically, every single ranked voting system will always require an arbitrary tiebreaker or rely on a dictator voter to resolve the loops. A perfectly fair ranked democracy simply cannot exist. If Arrow's impossibility theorem truly holds up under scrutiny, is the entire concept of a fair democracy ultimately doomed to fail? Not exactly. There is a loophole in Arrow's math. His impossibility theorem only applies to ordinal systems, systems where we force voters to rank candidates sequentially against each other. We can bypass this by changing the way we measure preference. Instead of ranking candidates, we use approval voting. You simply check a box for every candidate you approve of. That's it. It completely eliminates Condorcet loops. By tallying total approvals, the system elects the most universally tolerated candidate. Approval voting has practical history. Priests in the Vatican used it for centuries to elect the Pope, and it remains the method for choosing the Secretary General of the United Nations. It hasn't been widely adopted for large-scale national elections yet, and it will take real-world testing. But on paper, it mathematically solves the inherent paradoxes paralyzing our current systems. Democracy isn't mathematically impossible. We have just been asking voters the wrong type of question. If we update the way we capture the app ballot box, we can actually upgrade our democracy.